Right now, a jury in Utah is hearing one of the most unsettling cases in recent memory, a case that feels less like a trial and more like a psychological thriller. But as the Kouri Richins trial unfolds, a much darker story is emerging. In this video, we'll look at new testimony and uncovered secrets of their marriage that wasn't quite what it seemed. It all started with a shy man in a Home Depot who was too nervous to ask for a phone number himself. Back in 2009, Kouri Richins was working as a cashier at a local Home Depot in Utah. Eric worked in construction and was a regular customer. According to his family, he wanted her number for a long time, but he was so shy, he sent a friend inside to get it for him. The small-town love story grew into a beautiful family. They married in 2013 in a backyard ceremony. Over the years, they had 3 sons, Carter, Ashton, and Weston. By 2022, they were raising their boys, then 5, 7, and 9, in Utah. And friends described Eric as a hands-on, devoted father who was deeply involved in his kids' lives. He ran a successful stonemasonry business and coached his sons' sports teams. 31-year-old Kouri was an aspiring real estate agent with even bigger ambitions, not just selling homes, but flipping them, overseeing multi-million-dollar projects, turning old houses into a gold mine, and trying to become financially successful. That drive is part of what made her seem impressive to people around her. It's also part of what prosecutors now use to frame motive. This is one of the psychological fault lines running through this entire case. From the outside, they were at the pinnacle. Kouri's brother even remarked that right before the tragedy, they were the happiest he'd ever seen them and seemed to be in the best place. But that best place turned out to be the most dangerous, because while the neighbors saw a bonded and loving family, the latest witness testimony is now telling a different story. In the early morning hours of March 4, 2022, 39-year-old Eric Richins was found dead in the couple's bedroom in Francis, just outside Salt Lake City. Kouri told investigators she had brought cocktails upstairs that night to celebrate a real estate success, then went to sleep in one of their son's rooms because he was having bad dreams. She later said that when she returned to the master bedroom around 3 a.m., she found Eric unresponsive.
So what happened today?
She called 911 at 3:21 a.m.
911, what's the address of the emergency?
My husband's not breathing. He's cold.
Okay, what's the address? I need you to confirm it for me. Is he not breathing?
No.
Okay, can you do CPR?
No, I don't know how.
You don't know, I'm gonna tell you how to. Are you willing to do CPR?
Yeah.
Okay.
At first, this looked like a sudden tragedy. First responders initially suspected an aneurysm. Kouri was a complete wreck, sobbing that Eric had simply fallen asleep and never woke up.
We had a drink together at 9 to celebrate something at work tomorrow.
Okay.
We went to bed. I went to bed with my kids. He went to bed in our bed.
What time did you guys go to bed?
9:30.
9:30? Okay.
9:45.
And then what alerted you to him today, right now?
You know, when I just woke up, when I sleep with my kids, I always wake up and I go back in my own bed.
Mm-hmm.
I just crawled over on his side.
And he was laying in bed? Okay.
He was on his back on the bed, and I just...
Okay. And you said he was on his back?
However, the autopsy found that Eric died from a fentanyl overdose, and the amount was roughly 5 times the lethal dose. Former Utah Chief Medical Examiner Dr. Eric Christensen determined that Eric Richins had orally ingested the fentanyl, noting there were no injection sites on his body. Kouri told investigators that her husband occasionally used THC gummies before going to sleep, and she said she believed those gummies could have contained fentanyl. The medical examiner reported that no THC, the primary psychoactive compound found in cannabis, was found in Eric's system. Prosecutor Brad Bloodworth later stated that extraordinary amount of fentanyl was intentional, not accidental.
She was very well put together. She had a matching pajama. Her hair was all done up.
And then came the detail that made this case go viral far beyond Utah. About a year after Eric's death, Kouri Richins published a children's grief book called Are You With Me?, written to help children cope with losing a parent. In an interview promoting the book, she said,
"Like, Dad is still here, it's just in a different way."
And then, within weeks, she was arrested in 2023 and charged in connection with Eric's death. From a behavioral analysis standpoint, this move is baffling, because she did something most people in her position would never dream of. She stepped into the spotlight. While this might seem illogical for someone guilty of murder, it can also be a calculated tactic to divert suspicion. In criminal psychology, there is a concept called hiding in plain sight. By becoming the public face of grief, she might have been daring anyone to call her a killer. Do you believe the book was a genuine outlet for her children's pain, or was it intended to be the ultimate alibi? I'm curious to hear your take in the comments. 35-year-old Kouri Richins is now facing more than 30 counts, including aggravated murder, attempted murder, drug possession, and additional financial charges. Utah prosecutors have stated they will not pursue the death penalty. If convicted, Kouri could spend the rest of her life in prison. She has pleaded not guilty, and the case is now in an active 2026 trial in Summit County, with prosecutors and defense attorneys presenting two different stories about the same marriage and the same night. Prosecutors say this was murder for money and a new life.
The evidence will prove that Kouri Richins murdered Eric for his money and to get a fresh start at life.
The defense argues that the state has built a narrative around a flawed person, rather than providing proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Kouri Richins' defense attorney, Kathy Nestor, who is now representing Tyler Robinson, the man accused of murdering Charlie Kirk, said jurors would see by the end of the case that Kouri is innocent.
And they're going to show you the witch. And I'm going to take those same facts and those same witnesses, and I'm going to show you a widow.
Now, a lot depends on how jurors interpret her behavior, timing, and the evidence that remains. The testimony of family friend Allison Wright on March 2nd has changed how the story is being framed in court right now. So, what was really going on inside this marriage? Wright told jurors about a conversation she says she had with Kouri during a vacation in Costa Rica in 2019. Wright's husband was Eric Richins' business partner. She handles the accounts and bookings for her husband's company. Wright knew Eric from junior high, met Kouri when she started dating Eric, and was intimately familiar with their lives. The two families vacationed together. According to her, Kouri confessed that things were difficult between her and Eric, saying that she felt trapped and frustrated in the relationship, and spoke about the couple's prenuptial agreement. Wright testified that Kouri described feeling trapped financially, believing that leaving Eric would put her in a worse financial position, and that she was worried that the children might prefer to live with him because he had more money.
Eric would end up financially secure and her the opposite.
Wright also said Kouri feared how Eric could portray her to the community if the marriage ended. Wright said, "I felt for her. It was a hard conversation. I knew that things had been hard since their youngest child was born." Wright was also asked if she knew about Eric's romantic feelings for a female co-worker, which might have been causing marriage problems. Wright testified she had heard of the affair twice, though she couldn't recall exactly when she learned about it. She stated, "There was a friendship with a lady, but I don't know exactly what was going on." Wright noted she didn't believe she knew about it during the Costa Rica trip and didn't speak to Kouri about it then.
She and I never discussed her thinking about an affair.
Kouri appeared surprised by that response. Attorney Kathy Nestor argued that Kouri Richins was only unhappy in her marriage in 2019 because she believed Eric was having an affair. Wright further testified that Eric and her husband had a temporary falling out because her husband gave law enforcement information about a hunting violation Eric may have committed. However, she said they remained close to Kouri and Eric, but they stopped going on vacation together due to the pandemic and the demands of family life. This testimony was so pivotal that the attorneys fought over whether the jury should even hear it. The defense argued the information was too old, dating back 3 years before Eric's death, and called it prejudicial. Judge Richard Mrazek disagreed, ruling the conversation was relevant because it demonstrated Kouri's awareness of the financial and custody consequences of a divorce. Essentially, the state wasn't offering this as a prediction of murder in 2019, but as evidence of a mindset that prosecutors say helps explain a motive later. And this is where the case becomes psychologically gripping, because the word trapped can mean very different things. To one person, it sounds like a woman venting about a difficult marriage, something many people have done in private without ever harming anyone. To another, especially in a murder trial built around money and motive, it sounds like an early warning sign, a person describing a marriage as a financial cage. The trial is full of moments like this, the same words, but two entirely different meanings. Do you see a witch or a widow? and Wright's testimony didn't paint Kouri as weak or helpless. In fact, it did almost the opposite.
Kouri is super ambitious.
Wright said she admired Kouri, noting that she had earned a master's degree, was motivated, hardworking, and wanted to be financially independent. That detail matters because it complicates the picture. This wasn't a simple dependent spouse narrative. The testimony suggests someone who wanted autonomy, status, and control over her own future, and who may have felt that her marriage, or at least its financial constraints, stood in the way of that. That tension between domestic stability and personal ambition keeps surfacing throughout the trial. Trial testimony describes Kouri as deeply invested in real estate and house flipping. One associate describes her as having a dream of flipping homes the way people do on TV. A former marketing director and Kouri's friend described her as a brilliant young lady with a rare mix of intelligence and common sense. He said she often had several houses in rotation at once. She wasn't just a wife and mother, she was trying to build an identity around business momentum and visible success. And on the surface, that dream appeared to be within reach. Eric's masonry business was reportedly successful. The family seemed comfortable, living in an affluent area near Utah's premier ski resorts and traveling frequently. But behind the scenes, prosecutors argue that Kouri's real estate business was in serious financial trouble. The alleged debt figure is presented as nearly $2 million, with some estimates reaching $4.5 million owed to over 20 different lenders. Prosecutors have used that alleged debt load to argue financial desperation and motive. It was revealed that Kouri's bank account held a negative balance. That weight created a massive rift in the marriage, and the $2 million unfinished mansion in Midway became the final breaking point. Kouri wanted it. Eric refused to close on it. He thought it was a financial disaster. On March 5th, just one day after Eric died, Kouri closed on that house anyway. Prosecutor Brad Bloodworth said on the day of Eric's death, his estate was roughly $5 million, while his wife was spiraling toward a total financial collapse. The state argues that Kouri was chronically unhappy in the marriage. The defense argues that large debt numbers is standard practice in a house-flipping business, because projects are financed, sold, and paid down, and that Eric knew what was coming in and out. Then there's the question of marriage strain beyond money. There are claims from Kouri's family that Eric wanted Kouri to be a stay-at-home mom, and that this clashed with her independence. Eric would often leave for 4 to 5 months out of the year to guide hunting expeditions. According to Kouri's brother, his long hunting trips were a recurring source of friction. Think about the household dynamics while he was gone. For nearly half the year, Kouri was essentially a single mother, left alone with 3 high-energy boys and a mountain of growing bills. While Eric was off the grid in the wilderness, Kouri was in the trenches of a failing financial reality. This wasn't just a happy home, it was a pressure cooker. And when the pressure gets that high, people want to find a way out or make the pressure disappear. These details reveal 2 people moving in completely opposite directions. Eric was a traditionalist at heart. He wanted a partner to help raise their 3 boys in the quiet of rural Utah. But Kouri was brilliant and hungry. She didn't just want a home, she wanted an empire. But why didn't she just leave? If you layer money back on top of that, the stakes rise. Prosecutors have repeatedly pointed to the prenuptial agreement and to the financial implications of divorce versus widowhood. They argue Kouri stood to gain far more if Eric died while they were still married than if they divorced. They also allege she wanted money not only to stabilize her finances, but to support a new life. Then comes one of the most important details in the entire case background. Clint Benson, Eric's brother-in-law, testified that Eric found out Kouri had taken out a $250,000 home equity loan on their mansion without telling him and was allegedly misappropriating funds from his business using a forged signature. This prompted Eric to go to a divorce attorney. He didn't leave, but he did take steps to protect himself. He established a living trust, moving his assets out of Kouri's reach and naming his sister Katie as the trustee. He also changed his will to ensure that the defendant would never be able to manage his property after his death. Finally, he removed Kouri as the beneficiary of at least one $500,000 life insurance policy. According to prosecutors, Kouri Richins didn't realize this until after his death. She agreed to repay her husband after he confronted her about the missing money. Eric stayed because he lived for his sons and would have done anything for those boys, so he suggested counseling to keep the family together. That detail shifts Eric's role in the story. He wasn't just an unsuspecting victim, but a person proactively reacting to what he believed was happening around him. The paper trail suggests he was building a legal fortress around his life. Whether jurors see those moves as prudent financial planning, marital conflict management, or evidence that he feared something more serious, they are part of the prosecution's motive framework, and a key reason this case feels like a shadow war inside a marriage. This might have been perceived as a moment of betrayal on both sides. To Kouri, Eric was holding her back from her dreams. To Eric, Kouri had turned into a financial predator. Prosecutors have consistently portrayed her as obsessed with wealth and status.
More than anything, she wanted his money to perpetuate her facade of privilege, affluence, and success.
Most marriages don't collapse in one dramatic moment. They fracture quietly, due to mismatched ambitions, pride, and the growing feeling that two people are no longer living the same life under the same roof. That doesn't mean murder, but in a murder trial, those fractures take on a different angle. The prosecution wants jurors to see a motive taking shape over years. The defense wants jurors to see a complicated marriage being retroactively fitted into a criminal narrative after a tragic death. Kouri's attorney said they believe the evidence at trial will support their client's claim of innocence. They stated, "Kouri is a mother who wants to go home to her children. We are confident this jury will make that possible."
And at the end of this case, you will see Kouri Richins is innocent.
According to testimony regarding phone records, jurors heard that Kouri communicated daily with Robert Josh Grossman, a 41-year-old Iraq war veteran. Prosecutors have identified him as her boyfriend, beginning in November 2021. On Valentine's Day, Kouri and Grossman exchanged a series of messages. Some of them say, "I love you" and "wanna be my Valentine." One message said, "My heart is smiling." When those three words come from you, it's very unique, different than any time I've heard them before. The messages also indicated that she was on her way to see him on Valentine's Day. Kouri developed feelings for him when he was hired to work as a handyman on the houses she was renovating. Digital forensic expert Chris Kotrotamos, who analyzed cell phone data, testified that Kouri and Grossman exchanged texts almost every day, with only a few exceptions, starting in September 2020. Kouri had two phones at the same time. He said that on one of her phones, most of the communications were with Grossman. He also noted that much of the information about those messages came from Grossman's phone, not Kouri's. Kouri's phone showed evidence of extensive deletions between January 1st and mid-March 2022. He said hundreds of text messages were missing, along with call logs and web history data. Prosecutor Brad Bloodworth said it showed she had a guilty conscience. Prosecutors also alleged she was planning a future with Grossman, and cited messages they say reflected talk of divorce and remarriage. Kouri told her lover she missed him and wanted a divorce. Kouri wrote to Grossman, "Babe, I miss you. I want you today, every day, physically, mentally. Every day when I wake up, I do want a future together. I do want you. Figure life out together. If you could just be here, life would be so perfect. I love you. I have a crazy dream. You quit your job. I divorce and come up with millions and millions. We buy Midway and live in the guest house and rent out the huge house as a big event center. $15,000 a day like they charge down the road, maybe 12 to stay competitive. And we will just run the event center as our daily job and hang out every day, raise some kids, have a little farm. Deal?" This becomes more than infidelity in the prosecution's case. It becomes the foundation of a next-life motive. But prosecutors aren't offering it as proof by itself. They're presenting it as one more link in a pattern. A mountain of debt, unhappiness, a multi-million-dollar financial incentive, and an alleged emotional escape route. What makes this case so heart-wrenching is that, at its center, there are three young boys who will grow up with a courtroom battle attached to their parents' names. So, do you believe Kouri Richins is guilty, or is she a victim of a narrative built on circumstantial evidence? Tell me your thoughts in the comments and watch my next video on the latest developments of the 2026 trial. In the next episode, we'll go inside the explosive testimony of Robert Josh Grossman. What other secrets is their relationship hiding? Don't forget to watch the chilling true crime documentaries playlist. See you next time.